Okay, hi. We're going to have a quick look at clipping masks. First thing we're going to do is firstly let's just look at our layer stack. So we've got two images, an image named sculpture and an image named wires underneath it. Okay, so this image at the top, the sculpture one, is going to help guide us in this exercise. So let's go over and use the pen tool. And really quickly, I'm just perhaps a little bit roughly as well, but I'm just going to literally dot to dot my way around this sculpture. Alright, it's a little bit hectic what I'm doing here, but we'll go with it. Okay. Bing. We could be very precise in this matter if we wish to be, but I'm just trying to speed it up so you get the idea. Nice and fast. Click, click. Assuming that's in there somewhere, hard to see. And yes, in there, and there. Okay, a little bit rough and ready. You've got to go back and click on the initial start point of your path to close the path, which is what I've just done. Okay, so I'm going to take that form, which is kind of interesting, to me at least, and go to my path layer, and there it is. If I just double click on it, I can rename it and call it Sculpt 02. That's handy. That's saved now as a path. I should come back and wish to edit it or do anything with it. I'll then go into the select tool. So it's now a selection, and what I need to do is put an empty layer beneath the sculpture layer. Okay, and with that empty layer I'm just going to fill it with black paint. Okay, so I'm going to use the Control D keyboard shortcut to deselect. Okay, so now let's just look. There is our shape already. To my mind, that's kind of interesting, a little bit weird. Okay, what can I use that for? Well, let's bring in another image. Let's bring in another image. You can't see this image out to the right on the other screen, but I can. And I need to choose one that's going to drop in there and look maybe kind of interesting. I want something with nice shadows. Give me 2 seconds. Oh, that's weird. One of those. I'm pausing. There it is. I keep skipping past it, but one of these will do. Okay, so I'm just going to drag this image across the top. There it is. It's got some nice, strong late afternoon shadows, an image I took in Dusseldorf. Just interested in those 5 white columns and these lovely big shadows on the floor. Okay, so hit the enter button just to accept its position. You'll notice it's got a little tiny emblem there in the layer, and that just simply means it's a smart image, or a smart layer, smart image, I'm not sure which it is. But basic smart object, apologies, that's the right terminology. Smart object, which basically just means it's referencing an original image. It's not changing that original image, it's just referencing it at this point. Okay, so I'm going to now just click on the Alt button and hold it. Hover between layer 1 and the new image that's arrived and click. Oh, that's nice. And what's happened is layer 1, which I'll rename as our clipping mask 01. Our clipping mask is now allowing anything on, I'll call that street shadows, our street shadows layer, to appear above the wire image. Now what we can do is we can choose the move tool, go to the street shadows, and we can actually reposition the image, which can be very useful. Okay, so we can reposition the image, that's kind of interesting. We can also hold the Shift key, select both layers, and we can move both the clipping mask and the repositioned image to another part of the image, another part of the overall image, should we wish to. We can also, which is quite nice, use the Control and T command to transform the image. Now remember, if you're going to transform an image, always hold the Shift key, otherwise the image loses its original ratio and you get some distortion. So I'm just going to scale that image slightly and hit enter. Okay, so I kind of like the relationship between the little thin lines and the nice abstract angular shape. I'm just going to nudge that across a little bit. I'm using the arrows to nudge, but then I'm going to bring it back because I didn't like the nudge. Ooh. Okay, it's up to you where these things land, but that's kind of interesting straight off. Okay, so pause for a moment. Let's have a reflection on what we've just done. We used initially 2 images. I used this image simply to get a kind of interesting form. That was kind of little. Somebody had a kind of personal gallery in their front living room, which faced the street, and they had all these little sculptures in the front living room, which I really liked, actually, I have to say. And there's a couple of paintings and whatever. Nice marble top and some little sculptures. So I've used that as a shape for that mask, which is there. To create that mask, we use the path tool. Oh, the pen tool. I call it the path tool. Bad. Use the pen tool. It created a path. That's why I call it the path tool. And I double-clicked on it, named it Sculpt 02. That's a previous one which I was playing with, which I might use, actually. I might use that in a moment. Yeah, I might use that. And then once I clicked it, I activated it, so it's selection. It made a selection. I went in here. I created a brand new layer and I positioned that layer just above the clipping mask. I'll undo that last move because I don't need to do that. Okay, and then I brought in a new image, placed it over the top of the clipping mask, held the Alt key, went between them and clicked it once to create the full clipping mask effect. Okay, I think that's pretty straightforward. And the nice thing about this is you can build more and more layers upon this image. Okay, so I'm going to just do one more just to make it more complicated. Excuse me a second. So back to my paths. Here's one I created a little earlier. Select it. Click on the little selection button. There it is, activated over there. I'm going to create a new layer, and this new layer I'm going to make at the top of the stack up there. I'm going to fill it with black paint, like, as I did earlier. And I'm going to move the original sculptor image to the top of the stack. And I'm going to hover between the sculpture image and clipping mask number 2. Clipping mask 02. I'm going to hover between them. Hold the Alt key, hover between them, and click once. Okay, now I've got a second clipping mask. And this one, I'm just going to move the image around behind it to see what I get. Donkey. Undo that last move, deselect. I'm going to move the image behind it to see if I can get anything interesting coming through. I don't think it's that interesting, actually. Okay, it isn't that interesting, it's quite boring. Okay, so just bin that top image. I'll keep the clipping mask because I kind of like its shape. It's kind of nice, weird, angular form. I wonder what it's like if I just invert it and look at it in white. Yeah, it's kind of nice in white as well, actually. It's kind of nice as a shape. Not what I was intending, but I can't help it. That looks interesting to me. So I've got a clipping mask, but I'm just using it as a shape, so I'm just going to call it Sculpt Shape White. Okay, that's nice. That helps me understand my images. Okay. Shall I complicate things one more time? Yes, I will. This time round, I'm going to bring in I'm going to start with a letter. So I'm going to go over to the letter And I'm going to make sure that the size is about 4,000. And I'm going to click in here. Oh, sorry. Maximum pointage is 1296. Oh, let's go 1296. And oh, that's possibly too big, so let's go 1000. And let's go. I'm going to use the letter T. Oh, that was kind of nice. That was accidental. I used the backslash. Quite like that. Okay, I'm going to use it because it's a nice angle. Okay, so I've literally got a backslash. And you can see the symbol there in the layers. That's interesting. What I'm going to do now is bring in yet another image over the top. I only need something kind of neutral, like a nice greyish tone. So let me find something. There's a little wall I take a photograph of, and I'll bring that in. There it is. Very, very boring, I guess, but I've got some interest in it. Okay, so hold the Alt key, hover between the T and the newly brought in image, and super. There we go. I've got the texture, so grey wall, texture, and I've got a letter T. I'm going to select them both, and now I can start to move them around the image into a position which hopefully becomes interesting. Okay. I'm just nudging it with the arrow keys to start aligning it. Oh, it's not quite aligning the way I want it. So I'm going to rotate it slightly to transform. Control and T. Just going to rotate it ever so slightly. Say OK. Nudge it back down and see if that aligns a bit better. Zooming in. Control and plus to zoom in, and I just need to rotate it ever so slightly, I think, and then drop it back down. That's nicer. Okay, it's possibly a couple pixels imprecise, but forgive me. Okay, so very quickly, you can start to build up quite interesting geometric, abstract images based on shadow play, lines, structure, geometry, all the sort of things that you were looking at when you were in London, hopefully, and framing and all the things that we discussed before you went, positive and negative shapes, how things are layered, shadow and line, etc. Okay, that's enough. 30 minutes. I'll stop there. Okay, thanks very much. Arrivederci.